Today we are going to tackle one of the biggest, oldest questions you can ask about your own mind. It's stumped everyone from ancient philosophers to modern neuroscientists. And the question is this: where exactly is a memory?
No, really, just for a second. Think of something. You can picture it, right? Maybe you can even smell it or feel it. But where is it? Can you point to it? Is it kind of floating behind your eyes? Is it in the back of your head somewhere? It seems like such a simple question, but the moment you try to answer it, you realize just how deep this mystery goes.
For a really long time, this was pretty much the best answer we had. The philosopher John Locke put it perfectly. He said memory is like a storehouse. And that just feels right, doesn't it? We talk about storing memories, unlocking them, like they're things we can put away in a box for later. This storehouse metaphor, well, it has shaped pretty much everything we think we know about memory.
So let's really dig into this idea, because it's a powerful one. For centuries, we've pretty much defaulted to thinking of memory as some kind of physical storage space, a file cabinet for our thoughts.
And what's so fascinating is how this basic idea of a container just keeps updating with the times. Plato thought memories were impressions left on a wax tablet. Or later, he imagined them as birds in a giant cage, an aviary, that we have to reach in and catch. Fast forward a bit, and you got Freud seeing the mind as a house with different rooms for different memories. And then, of course, once we invented computers, well, the brain became the ultimate computer. The technology always changes, but that core metaphor of a box you put things in, it just sticks around.
Now, these metaphors aren't just for decoration. They actually make us think of a memory as a static object, a little thing that you file away, and when you need it, you just pull it out, perfectly preserved exactly as you left it. But what if that entire idea is just plain wrong? And that question, well, that's what takes us out of philosophy and drops us right into the world of science. Because if a memory is a real physical thing, then scientists should be able to pop open a brain and find it. This idea kicked off a massive, decades-long scientific hunt for something called the engram.
So, the engram, that's the fancy scientific name for what they were looking for. It's the physical memory trace, the scar, the change, whatever it is that an experience leaves behind in the brain. Back in 1904, a biologist named Richard Seaman gave it a name. And once it had a name, the race was on to actually find one.
And this is where the story gets really wild. A scientist named Carl Lashley spent 30 years, 3 decades, trying to pinpoint an engram in the brains of rats. He'd teach them a maze, then carefully remove a tiny piece of their brain's cortex, figuring that if he just snipped out the right spot, poof, the memory would be gone. But it never worked. No matter what part he removed, the memory was kind of still there. After all that work, he basically threw his hands up and said it was nowhere in particular, and yet somehow everywhere at once.
Lashley's incredibly frustrating result actually forced science to get way, way smarter. It led directly to what is, today, the mainstream theory of memory, the associative/connectionist model. We'll just call it the AC model. And it's a really brilliant answer to that whole nowhere and everywhere problem.
Okay, so how's it work? Well, according to the AC model, when you have an experience, let's say you see a sailboat, a specific set of neurons in your brain all fire at the same time. And that shared experience physically strengthens the connections, the synapses, between those neurons. The actual wiring of your brain literally changes.
And this is the absolute key to understanding this, that physical change isn't the memory. It's not a time file with a picture of a sailboat in it. Think of it more like a blueprint, or like carving a new path in the woods. That strengthened connection just makes it way easier for a very specific pattern of electrical activity to flow through that exact same circuit again in the future.
And that's the final piece of the puzzle. The memory of the sailboat is the reactivation of that electrical pattern. It's not a thing, it's an event. It's a process, you see? Memory isn't a noun, it's a verb. The engram isn't some object sitting in a cell, it's the potential for a specific electrical dance to happen all over again.
But of course, not everyone is satisfied with that answer. There's a new, pretty radical theory that's challenging this whole idea. It argues that maybe we should be looking for something a lot more like our old metaphors, just in a place no one ever thought to look. This is the computational/representational model, or C/R model for short.
The C/R model basically says the mainstream theory is looking in completely the wrong place. The engram isn't in the connections between the cells. No, it's a molecular machine inside each individual neuron.
The idea here is that actual data, facts, numbers, distances, is literally written and stored on molecules, kind of like a tiny biological hard drive. Imagine complex proteins folding and unfolding to represent ones and zeros. It's wild stuff.
So why on earth would anyone believe this? Well, check out this desert ant. It leaves its nest and wanders around for hundreds of meters on a totally chaotic search for food. Then, once it finds some, it makes a perfect, dead, straight line all the way back to its tiny, invisible home. CR theorists say, whoa, 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 a vague pattern of activity can't explain that. That ant has to be storing and computing specific data points, vectors, angles, distances. It needs a read-write memory to pull that off. This leads to a totally different picture of the brain. It's not one big circuit board. It's more like the internet. Each neuron is its own tiny, powerful computer with its own memory storage, and when those neurons fire, they aren't creating a memory pattern. They're communicating, like servers sending data packets to each other to update their files. And you got to admit, if memories really are just data, it opens up some crazy sci-fi possibilities. Could we one day edit or maybe even upload a memory?
So here it is, the big face-off. On one side, the AC model. The engram lives in the synapses between neurons. A memory is a reactivated pattern, and the metaphor is a circuit or a blueprint. On the other side, the CR model. The engram is inside the neuron itself. A memory is stored data, and the metaphor is a literal computer with read-write memory. These are two profoundly different visions for where a memory actually lives.
And this brings us right back to where we started. This isn't just some super technical disagreement for scientists in a lab. It's really about the power of the metaphors we use to understand our own minds.
Think about it. When you look closely, that mainstream AC model, it's really just a super sophisticated 21st century version of John Locke's old storehouse. The thing being stored is now a synaptic change. Yeah, it's a blueprint, not a file, but it's still a physical thing. The CR model, though, that's a totally different metaphor. It suggests memory isn't the hardware at all. It's the software that runs on the hardware. It's information. You see, our metaphors aren't just pretty descriptions. They're actually tools for discovery. They literally tell scientists what to look for and where they should be looking. So in a very real way, this whole debate over the Enneagram is a battle to find the right analogy for the brain.
Ultimately, this is just how we work. We use what we know to try and make sense of what we don't. From a wax tablet to a file cabinet, from a telephone switchboard to the internet, we are always grabbing the most advanced idea we have and using it to map the mysterious territory inside our own heads.
And that really leaves us with one final big thought. This whole search for the engram isn't just a hunt for a physical trace in our brain tissue. It's a search for the right way to talk and maybe even to think about ourselves. The answer to that simple question, where is a memory? It might just depend entirely on whatever great metaphor we come up with next.